Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Katie if you're new here, and on this channel, Girl vs Wild, I share my adventures mostly solo in New Zealand's great outdoors. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then please consider subscribing. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my upcoming adventure with the Christchurch Tramping Club, where we're hoping to climb a couple of mountains in Arthur's Pass. You might wonder what challenges there are when you're hoping to climb a mountain as a beginner, like me, with your local tramping club. So hopefully this video will share some of that behind the scenes and you'll find it really useful. So this will be my first overnight hike with the Tramping Club. So far I've been on 3-day hikes with them, and we'll be climbing 2 mountains in Arthur's Pass and then staying at the Club Hut. I've been looking forward to staying at the Club Hut for quite a while now, and also wanting to do more beginner friendly mountain climbing, so this is right up my alley. But there might be some challenges ahead on this weekend adventure. First of all, meeting the group. So I need to get up early. I've decided I'm getting up at 6 AM and I need to catch 2 buses to get to the Z in Rustley, where the Christchurch Tramping Club is going to meet, and carpool before driving to the mountains. I might find getting up earlier than normal tricky, and I'm a bit worried that I might miss one of my buses or both of them. But I have set my alarm and Googled the bus route so that I'll arrive hopefully 15 minutes early. Second, the weather is also looking a little bit questionable, with scattered showers forecast on Saturday and heavy showers forecast for Sunday afternoon, plus considerable avalanche danger above 1200 metres. This means that we'll need a backup plan and warm clothing. The trip leader has emailed us about different options that we could try, including maybe some mountain climbing in the Craigieburn ranges. That would be a little bit safer in terms of weather. I'm also packing a raincoat and warm clothes. Another challenge is making sure that I can keep up with the other more experienced and possibly faster members of the group. As I do a lot of solo hiking, it's hard to know how I might compare to the average hiker. I have kept up my fitness by going on hikes and also walking around town. I've packed energy dense snacks as fuel as well. The trip leader also said that we can split into different groups according to ability. Another challenge might be sharing food as a vegan. Will there be anything I can eat? We shall see. I am providing dessert and it will be vegan. If the main meal doesn't contain vegan options, then I've got extra crackers and hummus. Now that I've thought a little bit about a few of the challenges, I'm hopeful that I'm prepared, have everything I need, and I'm also looking forward to the adventure. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the video. So here's my gear all ready to go by the door for tomorrow morning. I've got my backpack that's got the bulk of my gear for the Club Hut, and then I've also got the smaller day bag because we're just doing 2-day walks. I've got my money belt that it's going to have my sunscreen and some essentials as well, so it's really easy to reach. And then I've got my shoes. I will be taking a spare pair of shoes and all sorts of things that I'm not going to go into right now. This is my hiking pole, by the way. But yeah, so I hope that I've packed everything and I'm really looking forward for the walk. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, but for now I've got to get a good night's sleep. In the end, I got up really early at 5 AM, much earlier than my alarm, as I was so excited. A hot shower helped wake me up, as did the fresh air of the street after rain. The buses were actually a breeze, and before long I was sitting in the car of the trip leader on my way to the mountains. The weather looked pretty ominous. The mountains were hidden by low-grade cloud. It looked like we would need to think carefully before choosing a mountain to climb. Once in Arthur's Pass, we checked out the Club Hut and unpacked a bit, had a snack. Several others were visiting it for the first time, just like me. Chris, the trip leader, had told us that he had decided that we would climb up to Carroll Hut near Otera, as it would be a safer option. I had been up there once or twice before, so I wasn't super excited at first, but knew that the fresh forest air and exercise would be great for the soul regardless. We crossed the river at the start of the trek and started heading up the mountain, unsure what views would appear through the cloud at the top. To start with, I was second and third from the front, behind Chris and another lady, and then after our break Chris wanted me to walk at the front as the trip leader. I ended up getting quite a bit ahead, and Then I soon realised that my fitness was more than adequate for the walk, which cleared up one of my initial concerns that I might not be fit enough for the hike, since I usually go solo hiking. As you can see, the cloud ended up opening up as well, so that put to rest another one of my concerns about the weather. And we could see beautiful bush-clad hills with a waterfall near the hut, as well as some of the Otero Valley and State Highway 73 on the left. Carroll Hut is situated on a relatively flat section of tussock land at the top of a hill. It's a standard hut and costs $10 per night for an adult. It also sleeps 10 people. I've just made a wee hut tour as well, which I'll link below in case you want to know more about Carroll Hut. I had a look around the hut while waiting for the rest of the group to catch up for 10 minutes or so, and then 10 minutes later when they arrived, we had a wee chat to figure out where we would go exploring next. Chris decided to lead the group up to the tarns higher up the saddle for lunch, whereas I set off on my own up Kelly Hill above Carroll Hut, as I was keen to cover new terrain and had already seen the tarns. I was a wee bit concerned that I was being antisocial, but comforted myself with the knowledge that we would meet up again soon. Within 15 minutes I reached a rocky outcrop partway up the hill and stopped to take in the views. The group joined back up at Carroll Hut, headed back down the hill, and I was in the front group, so we were in two cars. My group got to some roadworks and had to stop, and then we found out that the road to Arthur's Pass was closed for repairs to the Otero Viaduct, and then we called Chris, who was still with the slower group, and he told us to just wait for him at the Otero Hotel, which you can see here. So this part of the story got a wee bit interesting. We had to think on our feet, and Chris decided to put us all up for the night at Otero Hotel, which is a really characterful old hotel and full of interesting knickknacks and history, as you can see here. I definitely recommend staying here at least once. It's so interesting. I really liked the chandeliers. It even had a couple of pianos if you like music. So we had a lovely evening by the fire, drying our socks and shoes, and had a good night's sleep. And then the next morning we ended up driving back to Arthur's Pass bright and early, went to the club hut again, packed up our stuff, and then set off up Cons Track, which was a really good idea, and I was really pleased with that because I had never done it before. The weather was lovely and it was a lovely walk up the hill. It was pretty steep. Once again, I was at the front of the group after a little while, so I was definitely sure that I was more than fit enough for the walk, but I stopped at the sign that said that it was for mountaineers only, as I thought the track could get a little bit tricky after that. Plus, it's very important when you're walking with a group to make sure that you stick together, so stopping every now and then to let the slower members of the group catch up is always a really good idea. I also wanted to hear Chris's advice because he had promised us an interesting lesson on how to navigate mountain climbing and rocky terrain. So I was really keen to hear what he would have to say because I'm always keen to learn more, and I'm sure it will come in handy in the future. I'm going to share a little video at the end of this to tell you what his advice was and what our main takeaways from the trip were, because I think it's really useful for everybody to know. But here's some footage from the walk up to Cons Track. So here's a sign saying that this is a mountaineering route only. That means that you either want to be going with an experienced guide, you probably want to be going in a group, you want to make sure that you've got the right clothes and footwear. Like discussed earlier, the weather on this trip wasn't perfect, and on this walk up Cons Track, for example, we could see heavy clouds rolling in, and we actually experienced a bit of sleet later on this trip. So we wanted to be really careful. We stopped at the tree line, put on some warm layers, had another little discussion about what we would expect going forward, and then we went up to the mountain a little way for about 15 minutes or so, had lunch, and then carried on through the snow, which you can see here. Everybody else in the group had poles, which is actually a really good idea because they provide extra stability. They're good if you have a little bit of shakiness with your knees, In my case, I had decided to challenge myself to walk without poles for this trip, but they are a really good option. Another thing you can do is just have one pole so that you can stabilize yourself, but you can also have your other hand to grab snow grasses or rocks as you need to. Taking into account the different skill levels and fitness levels of the group, as well as the threatening weather, which looked like it might snow, we decided to turn back a little way before the summit, and here you can see the start of the trek again. We just took our time so that we wouldn't injure ourselves, and then we went back to the club hut for a lovely potluck lunch. So I had a hot tea, and then I made some fondue with chocolate and pineapple to dip in it, which everybody loved. And so I was pretty happy because I was a bit worried about the challenge of sharing food as a vegan with non-vegans, but I managed to find enough to eat by eating crackers as well as my fondue, and everybody loved the fondue as well. After lunch, while everybody was chatting, I decided to go off by myself for a swim at this waterfall, which you can see here. It's just behind the Old Stone Visitors Centre, so I put on my bikini, went for a swim. Then I joined up with the group, feeling lovely and refreshed. Just in time to hop in the car and head back with Chris to Christchurch. So hopefully this video has given you guys some idea of what it's like to head out on a mountain climbing trip with the Christchurch Tramping Club. Maybe it's similar for tramping clubs in your area. I'd like to know your thoughts below. So overall, I would say that this trip gave me an experience that was really invaluable. It showed me that I could rise to the challenge. I was fit enough to hike with the group up the mountains in Arthur's Pass. I was able to survive with my vegan food at the shared potluck. I had been well prepared with warm clothes and all the gear that I needed. And I also was really good at responding to the challenge of being stranded at Otira. I really enjoyed staying at the hotel. Thank you to Chris and everybody else for making that such a good experience. And I also wanted to read out to you some of Chris's email that he sent to recap some of the lessons that we learned on the trip. So he said, "Morning all, my gear is clean and dry. I'm ready for my next overnight trip. Some lessons for the weekend are: the guy in front is just the guy in front. He doesn't necessarily know where he is going, so it's good to have a general idea of the route. My calculation of downhill return time was over optimistic. 3 minutes does make a difference." Now there, Chris is just talking about how he missed the cutoff time to get through to Arthur's Pass and how we had to stay at Otira Hotel instead, which actually wasn't so bad. I quite enjoyed it. He also says, even if on day trips, it's good to have a change of clothes and footwear in case of heavy rain, river crossings or road closures. In snow, footprints are less stable on the return trip due to partial snow melt. So you've got to be careful. It's better to go in the morning because the snow is going to be harder, for instance. It's very easy to climb higher than you can safely climb back down. So if in doubt, stop climbing sooner rather than later. And we did do that on this trip. We stopped climbing well before the summit on the cons track and then headed back. Before climbing or crossing a rocky slot, check uphill for any rock dams, which will be holding back a pile of smaller loose rock, which can be triggered to avalanche. When climbing or descending, keep the group as close together as possible to prevent loose rocks from hitting downhill people at speed. You are more likely to dislodge rocks when descending than when climbing up a slope. When you are above the bush line in windy or cold conditions, if in doubt, put another layer on, as it's easier to stay warm than to get warm. So thank you to Chris for those insights, and I hope that all of us, myself and the viewers, will remember them for our next trip climbing up a mountain, whether that's solo, in a group with a friend, with your local tramping club, you name it. So thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Ka kite!